for Thomas Tolbert. He is a 27-year-old black male, last seen in basically all black. And what happened on Sunday night, and we told you about this, and it's been the lead story in Kansas City since yesterday, an officer approached the suspect in the parking lot of the apartment complex in Lee Summit, attempted to detain him, and that is when Tolbert broke away and began running on foot with the officer running after him. So there's a new development here to all this that I have not seen local media pick up yet on. And this will not shock you one bit as we get it rolling on a rainy Tuesday, 6:06 here on KCMO Talk Radio. Brad Lemon, the Fraternal Order of Police president for KCPD, shared this yesterday on his Facebook page about this guy, Thomas Tolbert. That back in 2019, this a-hole, I'm reading Brad Lemon's Facebook post here, so no need to hit the dump button this early, Mark, okay? I'm censoring Brad's Facebook post because Brad just doesn't hold back, man.
Very well, very well.
He comes on the air and he, sounds all professional, a little soft spot. You get him on Facebook, you get him off the air, different guy. It's hilarious. Anyway, he writes here, in 2019, Thomas Tolbert led KCPD officers in a car chase, jumped out of his car, and started shooting at the police. The officers returned fire, wounding him and placing him in custody. Former Jackson County prosecutor Gene Peters Baker hated the police and offered him an offered plea and gave him just over 1 year in prison. He immediately returned to beating the women in his life. Lemon goes on the right. Last night, he again shot at and struck a Lee Summit police officer. Thankfully, the officer survived and will recover, but it should have never happened. This monster should still be in custody. But Gene Peters Baker's hate for police officers once again reared its ugly head. Thankfully, she moved out of town after she laid waste to Jackson County. Too bad she doesn't have to deal with the garbage she created. Be careful, brothers and sisters. That is the post from Brad Lemon, the Fraternal Order of Police president for KCPD. So I went through all the local TV stations this morning, and I didn't see an extensive breakdown of his 2019 incident with KCPD, where he also shot at those officers. They returned fire and they wounded him. They placed him in custody, and Gene Peters Baker slapped him with 1 year in prison.
Yesterday, Keatsman and I recognized that it looked like a mug shot that they were putting out there, so we knew that he had done something in his past. We just weren't sure what.
Yeah, that's a very good point, since, of course, Thomas Tolbert is still on the run. Last seen with a black top with a hood and black shorts, and armed with an unknown color 10-millimeter handgun.
Now, we did have a variety of reports. One station said that the police didn't know him, but the first report I read of the day from KSHB said the police knew who he was as he fled the scene. And they knew that he was known to shoot at officers, although it didn't cite a specific instance.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I will give some credit where it's due to...
Yeah.
They're still woke 41, though, okay? They're still woke 41. But yes, credit where it's due. So you've got now this guy's background being front and center as the chase continues for this man, and who knows where he is. We don't know if he's in the Kansas City area. Lee Summit Police, of course, are doing their best, along with regional law enforcement, to try to track this guy down. But this is the kind of stuff that needs to get out there about how soft on crime policies end up hurting innocent people. You have a woman who is involved with domestic violence. You have a police officer who looks like he's going to live, but is still dealing with serious injuries in the hospital, and if not for his bulletproof vest, is dead today. You got a Lee Summit cop who, according to multiple reports, one of the shots that hit him was right above his heart, but it caught his bulletproof vest. This guy was inches away from losing his life. And this is where last week when we were talking about, hey, it's the 5-year anniversary of George Floyd. We're here half a decade later, and how has the world changed? Well, the world got really stupid. I think things are starting to smarten up a little bit. Not a ton. It really depends where you are. But when you look at how crime impacted those who are most vulnerable in Kansas City in particular, well, it was the people living in poverty. It was the people living largely in high crime areas already in Kansas City. They were the ones who were getting impacted the most. It wasn't the Wokedokes on the plaza. It wasn't the people largely in parts of Kansas City that don't actually deal with any crime but can put up their yard signs. Those are not the people who were impacted in large part by all this. And this guy is just one example of how when you let people off the hook, when you slap them on the wrist, when you treat them with kid gloves, they don't learn their lesson. They just don't. So we're following that story this morning here on KCMO Talk Radio, and I would love to give you some updates on potentially an arrest of this individual, but for now, he is still at large. Now, speaking of violent incidents in Kansas City, several people are suing the individuals and companies connected with the 2024 Chiefs Parade shooting. This comes yesterday, Fox 4 reporting here that Erica Reyes is suing on behalf of herself and her two children. All three of them were shot during the parade on February 14, 2024, according to a lawsuit filed yesterday in Jackson County. Kathleen Martinez is suing on behalf of herself and her children, one of which was shot during the parade. And Esmeralda Ortiz is suing on behalf of herself and her child. Neither of them were shot during the parade, but the lawsuit alleges that the two suffered severe emotional distress and anxiety after watching their family get shot. Now, I can't imagine what these people have been through. Attorneys told Fox 4 the plaintiffs in the lawsuit are family. Two of them are cousins. Two are related by marriage, according to attorneys. I can't imagine what they've been through. But in the overly litigious society that we find ourselves in right now, are we going to sit here and say that this is the fault of Kansas City, Missouri, of Union Station, of the Sports Commission? I don't see any evidence to suggest that based on how much we've followed this story over the last year and a half. According to the lawsuit, the deadly shooting was the direct and proximate result of negligence, carelessness, violations, and failures of Kansas City, Missouri, and Union Station, as well as the greater Kansas City Sports Commission. You know, if you want to make sure that Kansas City can't ever do anything and that cities in general can't ever host events, this is how you go about doing it, trying to basically make sure they have to pay out millions of dollars when we had, 800-something cops out there from every jurisdiction around Kansas City? I'm not sure what more they could have done.
I was with you there. I was like, wow, it took a little while to put this all together, I guess. And then the list of people there, I'm like, well, I'm not sure how you connect those things. I think they did everything they could. It's just evil.
That's what it is. And if you want to hide out in a bunker all day, you have every right to do that. If you want to go out into society, there are risks that come along with that. Now, you have to take calculated risks, right? I wouldn't get on an airplane if I knew the other 200 people on the plane didn't go through TSA, although TSA is a joke, so maybe that's a bad example, but you get the point, right? You've got to pick and choose how much risk in everyday life you're willing to take. There are summer festivals happening. There are parades happening. There are rodeos happening every single weekend for the next few weeks.
Zip lining in the Ozarks, hang gliding in Puerto Rico or Jamaica.
Yeah, you can do all of it.
Anything.
And you've got to figure out how much risk you are willing to take. If you go to your July 4th parade coming up and God forbid something happens like what happened in that Illinois town a couple of years ago, a crazed man in his car driving through the parade and harming people and killing some people, is that the city's fault? I mean, how much protection can you ultimately expect, or should you ultimately expect, from your city, from Union Station at an event like this? I'm not saying any of us could have predicted this. I'm not saying any of this was foreseeable. It wasn't. But when you're Kansas City, Missouri, and you've got 800 police officers spread out throughout that rally and that parade, you can't, there's a lot of things to criticize Kansas City, Missouri for. You cannot sit here and say that Kansas City, Missouri let down the people there that day because they didn't have enough law enforcement. I don't believe you can make that claim.
I'm with you there. I was going to say 800 might be more than the total Kansas City. More than the total Kansas City Police Department. And my point being that we brought in officers were hired from other jurisdictions and areas to help out.
Yeah, they came from both sides of the state line. It's not like this was slapstick together. We had done these parades on multiple occasions over the last decade, and now to sit there and sue Kansas City, Missouri, a year and a half after the fact, I will add as well. The timeline on that is kind of weird. And then you get into a spot where you've got to sit there and say to yourself, what more could Union Station have done? I'm not buying that. I'm not. And it's not that I want to have Kansas City's back in any of this, but I don't think this is at all a fair lawsuit. And all it will do is dissuade cities and municipalities from hosting any kind of event that could be beneficial for their residents. 913-4087-957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We'll get to you on this coming up here on a Tuesday morning. The rain is falling around Kansas City, and we're glad that you are with us. We also have to share with you the comical lead story I saw yesterday on a national level that hopefully will make you react the same way it made me react. We'll get to it all coming up next.
On Tuesday's Guy Benson Show from Minnesota, we'll be in the homeland of jazz hands. Tim Walz, we'll talk about him. Tommy Lahren joins the program coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Oh, you got to love that. Guy Benson, ready for Mr. Jazz Hands. Tim Walz. Last night, we were watching Greg Gutfeld's show, and they teased an upcoming segment, and they called Tim Walz Tampon Tim. And Kate said to me, she goes, I never understood the Tampon Tim thing. What's who's Tampon Tim? What is it? I said, oh, well, he was the governor of Minnesota. And when he was governor, he allowed tampons into the men's bathroom. So this came probably last August when Kamala Harris selected him as her running mate. That became one of the early nicknames for then vice presidential candidate Tim Walz, as Tampon Tim. I never used it, but actually, I take that back. I used it early on once or twice, and then I kind of got bored with it. So I never used it a lot, but it still is hanging around. Yeah, so there you go. Nice job by Guy Benson. He's coming to Kansas City next Thursday. We've got like less than 10 tickets left to buy for our event with Guy Benson at Boulevard Brewing. Meet and greet, dinner, drinks, the whole deal. We're going to have a great time, and you still have some tickets left to buy if you want at KCMOTalkRadio.com. Now, speaking of the national news cycle, I can't believe this is still the headline story on the Drudge Report. You know, I'm doing my research last night, took the girls to their first ever softball practice, and it was like an instructional
That's
deal.
fun.
Oh, they loved it. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I could bring them both because it was like from ages 4 to 6. So I brought both of them last night, and they had a blast. I think my younger one liked playing in the dirt more than anything else, but either way, they had a great time. So I get home, I'm going through the local news, watching some of the local news and checking out some of the national news. And I still go to Drudge Report, even though Drudge is totally a shell of what he used to be. They basically hate Trump now, but I still listen. I go to CNN, I go to a bunch of different websites to see what's going on. But this was, and still is right now, the lead story on the Drudge Report. Headline, exclusive FEMA staff confused after head said he was unaware of U.S. hurricane season. So I'm like, okay, what is this all about? It's from Reuters. And the article reads as follows. Staff of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, that's FEMA, were left baffled on Monday after the head of the U.S. Disaster Agency said he had not been aware the country has a hurricane season, according to 4 sources familiar with the situation. The remark was made during a briefing by David Richardson, who has led FEMA since early May. It was not clear to staff whether he meant it literally as a joke or in some other context. You can't be serious. You're telling me that Reuters is writing this piece from anonymous staffers at FEMA who heard the new guy in charge say he wasn't aware the country has a hurricane season. And then you write, well, it's not clear to staff whether he meant it literally or in some other context, like as a joke. What do you think? Like, with all due respect, what do you there are definitely some idiots in this story. And it's not the head of FEMA here. It's not David Richardson. I promise you that. This is, how does Reuters even get a hold of such a made-up story like this? Do you really believe that the guy who has been put in charge of FEMA said with a straight face he was unaware that there were hurricanes? I have a 6-year-old who is aware of hurricanes. She has asked about hurricanes in the last month. I don't know where she got the information from, but she was asking about tornadoes and hurricanes. And I explained it to a 6-year-old. This harkens back to Trump 1.0, when they would just find any reason whatsoever to write an absolutely absurd story that doesn't pass any kind of smell test about either Trump or somebody who may have 6 degrees of separation from Donald Trump. And the ultimate goal here is to point out, oh my goodness, look at the cuts and DOGE, and they're trying to slim down the government. And when you slim down the federal government, You get people in charge of FEMA who don't know that we have hurricanes in this country. And then you're supposed to believe this. That may be the worst part of all this. They think that you're going to believe this. Because any attempt to trim down the size of our federal government means that we have to have people like this in charge of FEMA who apparently don't know that we have hurricanes in America in the late summer, early fall. How foolish do you have to be to buy any of this? And this morning is the headline story on the Drudge Report. Go figure. That is an absolute embarrassment. But you know what? It also, sadly for Drudge, has become par for the course. On the text line, Pete, I'll take sarcasm for 500, please. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. I'm sure this guy was in his meeting and he had some woke staffers in there and he was like, someone asked, sir, did you know that it was hurricane season coming up? And he said, oh, do we have hurricanes around here? I didn't know. And then they ran to Reuters and they're like, the new FEMA chief doesn't know anything about hurricanes, John.
Well, I guess they're used to Biden, maybe. Now they're going to use that excuse. Oh, we can't be sure.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah. After Joe was running the show for the last 4 years, I don't know what's
lost in the closet.
Yeah, don't know what's satire, what's sarcasm, what's up, what's down. Go figure. But this is just a classic example of a national media publication, courtesy of anonymous sources, rolling with, oh, got to make Trump look bad here. Got to make this administration look bad. Please spare me. 913-408-7957. We got mental health updates next.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Got some new polling, but no, it's not boring polling. You're not going to sit here and say polling. What are we talking about polling for? It's, June 3rd of 2025. What possibly could we be talking about on the polling front? No. This is more about your mental health based on your political ideology. And this is a fascinating poll. This is from Nate Silver's Silver Bulletin. Dropping here, self-reported mental health by political ideology. 51% of conservatives call their mental health excellent. The best, some may say. Only 20% of liberals call their mental health excellent. How many would refer to their mental health as being poor right now? 45% of liberals say their mental health is poor. And 19% of conservatives say their mental health is poor. Now, you might sit there and say, well, that's just driven by the ideology and who's in charge right now. And the Trump derangement syndrome certainly has people all bent out of shape. But I don't think that's what's going on here. I don't. I don't think it's simply like, hey, Trump's in power, therefore people who are self-identified liberals view themselves right now as having poor mental health. So I don't buy that at all. I think it's actually part of a broader identification crisis that we find ourselves in that's driven by America. Now, who's in charge has some impact on that. But Bill Maher was talking about this on his show a couple of weeks ago. Not this poll, because this poll just came out yesterday. But this idea that there is one political party motivated heavily by its base that can't stand the idea of America. And Bill Maher called him out on it, by the way, to his credit.
Seriously, this is a serious problem for Democrats. Less than 1 in 4 Democrats under 30 say they're proud to be an American. 54% say they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed by it. Embarrassed. Like America's your mom picking you up at school? You're embarrassed to be an American? Well, guess what? The feeling's mutual because you have no perspective. Is America perfect? No, of course not. No country is.
When you have been taught that America is not the greatest experiment in the history of mankind, and when you have been taught in large part that America is a flawed, failed, and frankly, in many cases, some believe evil place, well, of course, you're not going to be that high on your own country. And therefore, you might perceive the culture around you and the society around you to be lacking. You might perceive it to be a place that is not the land of the free and the land of great opportunity. You don't perceive it that way. So if you think everything around you is evil and awful, well, you're more likely to put yourself in a position where you say, oh man, my mental health's struggling. I'm in this country. It's not looking out for me, not doing anything for me. It's a bad place to be. And until we fix it, well, I don't see how I can look at this country and look at my homeland in any kind of positive light. And that's having a major impact on my mental health, John.
Yeah, we talk about what is learned at school, and we probably have focused too much on America's downside. So that's what's dwelled on if history is taught at all. But then you go into the echo chamber of social media here in the last, 15, 20 years.
Yes, you're right. That's only made it worse. Because then you can really just basically sympathize with people who are exactly like-minded to you.
America sucks. Social media says, I know, right?
Yeah, that's so true. So that poll didn't surprise me when I saw it yesterday from Nate Silver. And I don't believe it's as simple as like, well, Republicans feel their mental health is better now because they've got political power and Democrats don't have any, so they're down on their mental health. I would venture, and I have not seen Nate Silver do this poll before, but I would venture to guess that even during the Biden years, those who self-identify as conservatives likely have a better view of their own mental health than those who identify as liberals. because it's not about really just who's in the White House. That's only a very small part of it. Now, also, another poll dropped yesterday from CNN and NBC. And it says here, which party is the party of the middle class? We are now in a tie between the Republicans and the Democrats. This polling goes back to 1989. And back in 1989, the Democrats had a 23-point edge in this number of Americans who viewed them as the party of the middle class. Go to 2016. Of course, Trump won the first time around. Democrats still had a 17-point edge in being the party of the middle class. By 2022, the Democrats' edge was down to 4 points. And now it is dead even. It is a tie between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats over the last 35 years have lost 23 points in this poll as being the party of the middle class, from plus 23 to now dead even. Ask yourself why that might be. Well, I think Biden did massive damage over his 4 years, but it was already happening. It was trending this way already. And when you acquiesce to a group of people who are more interested in making sure that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and pandering to the most progressive base of your party, well, you lose a lot of regular people. You lose a lot of those working class, everyday folks who are just out there saying, you know what? I mean, yeah, I thought the Democratic Party had my back. I liked the party under Bill Clinton. I even might have liked it and thought it had some opportunities under Barack Obama, although that's when it started to end. But the awakening of the last few years and pandering to, frankly, those who don't want to work and the elite of the elite, that does not connect with everyday Americans. It doesn't do it. And to tie this back to Bill Maher, who I just played a clip of here a few minutes ago, in that same monologue, Bill Maher from just a couple of weeks ago was warning his preferred political party. Listen, Bill Maher is not going to be a guy out there who's some rock-ribbed conservative. That's not who he is. He was warning his own party to stop listening to the crazy. The crazy when it comes to economic policy, the crazy when it comes to the anti-Semitism that is more rampant by the day, the crazy when it comes to foreign policy and simping for Hamas. Bill Maher was on it.
Liberals need to push back on the dumb ideas that come from their children. The Democrats' problem is the energy of the parties with the young and the young are with the terrorists. That's not good. So talk to your children and remind them you don't really want to live like your heroes in Hamas. All the you do all day, it was all made in America. Your smartphone, your Grubhub, your freedom to bitch about America, that's all American stuff. You tell your phone you want a milkshake and a guy brings it to your house. Please.
Yeah, how would that work on the Gaza Strip right now? Not too well. At all.
It's kind of like chasing your shadow, I guess, when you're out there cultivating.
Bigger tent party that is attractive, more attractive every day to the middle class. A more diverse party than it's ever been. That's great. But the only downside to that is that in off-year elections, you're going to have a harder time getting your voters out. One trend that you are seeing is that Republican voters are becoming less likely than Democratic voters to show up in elections that are not presidential elections. That is something that Republicans are going to have to figure out how to re-engage their new voters and get them out to the polls when someone named Donald Trump is not at the top of the ticket and Donald Trump is not on the ballot. And frankly, I don't believe the Republican Party has figured that out yet. I don't think they've figured out what to do about it. I think they're aware of it, obviously, but they don't really have a strategy for how to motivate the 70-plus million people that showed up for Trump last year to get out there in midterms and school board races and things of that nature. Because it's a voting bloc that is less likely to vote in every one of these local elections. As the Democrats become more and more the party of the elite, they're the ones who are going to clean up in a lot of these local races. And Republicans have to figure out a strategy to combat that. Coming up, the 6 at 6, the top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. There is a lot happening right now in this town. We'll run them down next on KCMO. As you're getting rolling here on a rainy Tuesday morning, I hope this is not you, but if it is you and you are in need of a plumber right now or anytime today or this week, this month, whatever it might be, the Plumbing Pro here in Kansas City can check off all the boxes that you look for in a plumber. Reliability, professionalism, quality workmanship, transparency, and customer service. That is what Steve has strived for since he started the Plumbing Pro back in 1978. Their mission is really a simple one, and it's worked for them for almost 50 years in this town, and that is providing the best quality plumbing service at a reasonable cost to homeowners and businesses all over the Kansas City metro. And when you talk to their owner, Steve, he'll tell you that any success they've enjoyed is just the result of how they've treated people along the way. And don't just take my word for it or Steve's word for it. You can look at their Google reviews where they have a 4.8 out out of 5 stars. So when you need a plumber, you need theplumbingpro.com. That's maybe it's depends what kind of mood I'm in. Theplumbingpro.com.
Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
6:49. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Don't forget Tirade Tuesday. If you are a 6 a.m. listener, you want to make sure you're back here at 8:30 this morning. If you have not caught a Tirade Tuesday, I mean, I know I'm biased when I say it, but you're missing out. We allow listeners to come on and rant about whatever's on their minds. I will not dictate the rant or the content. The one segment a week, we won't do it. So make sure you're here at 8:30. Set the alarm right there on your smartphone, your smart speaker, whatever it might be, and join us if you're not usually with us at 8:30. But you're here right now. Let's do it.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Manny Abarca, Jackson County legislator, whose wife filed a missing persons report for Manny and their 2-year-old son, showed up yesterday at the Jackson County legislative meeting remotely. He led the Pledge of Allegiance. And it kind of looked like nothing was wrong and nothing was out of sorts outside of the fact that he was not physically at the Jackson County legislative meeting. He joined via Zoom. It was beyond bizarre. His wife says that she doesn't know where he is and where their 2-year-old son is. Manny has emailed media outlets saying, my son and I are safe, and he called the missing persons report erroneous. But it's been filed with the Shawnee Police Department, and we just kind of sit here and we wait to see how this story unfolds. But it is a very weird story that is getting even weirder by the day when Manny is showing up for his Jackson County legislature meeting and leading the Pledge of Allegiance like nothing's going on, and he's not somebody who had a missing persons report filed about him in the last couple of days. Weird, weird story that takes more twists and turns.
Number 2.
Next up in the 6 at 6, a special session down in Jeff City. Started yesterday, and it was a joke. Nothing really happened on day one. The goal, of course, is to get the Senate working this week on tornado relief funding in St. Louis, of course, Chiefs and Royals funding, and infrastructure funding. But yesterday was basically, it was kind of like when you have a bunch of little kids and they all got to get something off their chest before they start doing what they're asked to do. That's what yesterday was in Jeff City. You had members of the Missouri Senate going out there and like demanding that we listen to them talk about their bills regarding banning cloud seeding. It was just bizarro world down there. But I texted some people down in Jeff City and they said, no, this is always how it goes. This is how we expect it to go. Don't worry, just day one. We'll get around to it. Okay, I'll take your word for it. But man, this is why I don't think I could ever do that job, because sitting around some of these numbskulls would just drive me nuts. Absolutely nuts. But God bless them for wanting to do it.
Number 3.
Next up in the 6 at 6, Lee's Summit continues its search for a man who shot one of their police officers on Sunday night. The officer is still in serious condition after getting hit multiple times on Sunday night. And now the search continues for Thomas Tolbert, 27-year-old man accused of shooting a Lee's Summit cop multiple times. He's been charged in Jackson County Court by Melissa Johnson with first-degree assault, second-degree domestic assault, armed criminal action, unlawful possession of a firearm, and resisting arrest. We also know about this individual per Brad Lemon and his Facebook post. He is the KCPD Fraternal Order of Police president, that this guy back in 2019, during a car chase with KCPD, jumped out of his car and started shooting at the police. So this guy has a long criminal history, 27-year-old black male, 6'2", 240. He's armed, and he was last seen wearing a black top with a hood and black shorts. Thomas Tolbert is considered at large at this point, and the entire region has been notified.
Number 4.
In the 6 at 6, as we keep it rolling here on KCMO Talk Radio, a lawsuit has been filed stemming from the Chiefs Super Bowl parade shooting a year and a half ago. You have multiple families who have sued Kansas City, Missouri, Union Station, and the Greater Kansas City Sports Commission. These folks are all related. Erica Reyes is suing on behalf of herself and her 2 children. All 3 of them were shot during the parade celebration. Kathleen Martinez suing on behalf of herself and her children, one of which were shot during the parade. And Esmeralda Ortiz suing on behalf of herself and her child. Neither of them were shot during the parade, but the lawsuit alleges the 2 suffered severe emotional distress and anxiety after watching their family get shot. So that lawsuit was filed yesterday in Jackson County.
Number 5.
Next up in the 6 at 6, King of the Hill voice actor was shot to death in San Antonio during an argument with his neighbor. Actor Jonathan Joss, best known for his work in the animated series King of the Hill, has died after being shot by a neighbor in San Antonio. San Antonio PD telling TMZ that Sigfredo Alvarez Ceja was arrested and charged with murder, and bond has been set at $200,000. Police say the unidentified neighbor whipped out a gun and fired several bullets into the actor before fleeing in a vehicle. Officers responded to a call of a shooting in progress and received a description of the car. One of the more bizarre stories. Joss was 59 years old.
Number 6.
And we'll end it on a lighter note. We've got Jack Caglione making his major league debut tonight. That is happening in St. Louis, of all places, against the Cardinals, 6:45. Mark is fired up. He's placing every parlay he can find on Jack Caglione tonight, aren't you, Mark?
Woo! Gonna hit a home run, I'm telling you.
He's going to hit a home run?
I think so.
Oh, man. You got
Get
high
that
hopes.
hashtag going.
You got high hopes. High hopes. Who's on the mound tonight? Michael Lorenzen for the Royals and Andre Palente for the Cardinals. Palente is 4-3 with a 4.2 ERA. Entirely possible. He's given up 9 home runs on the season. There you go. The Jack Attack. Get him underway tonight. The call-up has happened. And high expectations for him as he makes his major league debut. Coming up, the Kansas City Star usually can't embarrass itself any more than it already does on a regular basis, but this was next level yesterday. I mean, even by their standards, this was so embarrassing. We'll tell you why next. I wish the star would bite the dust. It just keeps living, though. 7:05. It is great to be here on KCMO. This was the lead story at the Kansas City Star yesterday. Missouri Stadium plan may be in jeopardy. One reason, ? Royals Pride Month post. Stop lying. Just
You muster moo.
That's the nicest thing I can say about the Kansas City Star. There is no world where a Kansas City Royals Pride post is the reason they don't get stadium funding in this special session. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can just let me read the piece to you in the Star instead of actually reading the piece yourself, because who needs to do that when I did it for you? So that headline was screaming on the homepage of the Kansas City Star yesterday. And I'm like, what are they talking about here? The Royals aren't going to get potentially stadium funding over a Pride Month post? I mean, I'm not even like, listen, June 1st happened on Sunday, and suddenly every baseball team, every professional sports league, every Fortune 500 corporation becomes gay. That's what happens. I just, it's a tale as old as time. We see it every single year. June 1, all these major corporations and teams, they're all gay. I don't know. I mean, just it happens.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
It's the world we live in. I'm not going to rant on it because it's predictable. What I'm going to be upset with is the Kansas City Star portraying the narrative that somehow the Royals funding will either pass or fail based on a Pride Month post. That's not what's going to happen here. And the Star doesn't even allege that. You have to go down about 6 to 7 paragraphs into this piece, which was headlined, Missouri Stadium Plan May Be in Jeopardy. One reason, ? Royals Pride Month post. You got to go all the way down, 6, 7 paragraphs in, where they write here, on the Republican side, a hard-right group of senators called the Freedom Caucus is promising to derail the stadium plan if Kehoe doesn't expand the session to include their priorities. They want tax cuts and legislation that would make it harder for voters to amend the state constitution. Okay? Once again, I'm 6, 7 paragraphs in, and they have written nothing about how a Royals Pride Month post is going to derail stadium funding. They then go on the note here, one Freedom Caucus member, Nick Schroer, a Defiance Republican, and at least one prominent former member went a step further over the weekend and attacked the Royals for a social media post in support of Pride Month. Okay. Schroer then said during a radio interview yesterday, I don't know where this was, it would be nice if the Star gave credit to a radio station, which would be the journalistic thing to do. It wasn't on this show. I'm just curious where it was. Schroer said, if you're going to stay in the state of Missouri and take the tax dollars, I don't think that we should be, utilizing these resources to shove sexuality down the throats of our kids. That was the quote from Nick Schroer on some radio show somewhere yesterday. Well, once again, this is just the comment of one state senator out of 35. That's it. They use a social media post and a radio interview comment from one state senator out of 35. And this state senator is somebody who is already a no vote on the stadium funding if you look at his social media. So his vote didn't change because of a Royals Pride Month post. There's nothing in this story that suggests that Missouri's stadium plan will be in jeopardy because of a Royals Pride Month post. But that's what the headline was in the Kansas City Star. Once again, the headline was, quote, Missouri's stadium plan may be in jeopardy. One reason, Royals Pride Month post. That's simply not true. That is not true at all. And they don't even write about that being true at all. They write about one state senator. And I don't know Nick Schroer. I don't know anything about him. The only reason I know the guy's name is because he was one of the guys who falsely accused Denton Loudermill, a man from Olathe who has since passed away, as being the alleged shooter in the Super Bowl parade. Of course, he wasn't. So I don't know if this guy just has a quick trigger on social media. I don't know if he's not playing with a full deck. Maybe both. Who knows? But for the Star to do this kind of journalisming and allege that somehow the stadiums will not pass funding because of a Pride Month post is just not true. And when you read their article, they don't even make that accusation or insinuation. It was just a bizarre headline that led to absolutely nowhere. So I posted this on social media, and a lot of you thanked me for sharing the details because you don't actually subscribe to the Star. So then I wondered if there was some 3D chess going on here for the Kansas City Star, where they know most people that see the headline are not going to actually read the article because either they're too lazy or they don't have a subscription. So they get their propaganda out there without actually ever having to prove the story to back up the headline because there was no story to back up the headline. But that's par for the course for them. One guy writes here, his name is Coach Bush. He says to me on X yesterday, Pete, thanks. I didn't want to pay to read the rest, and I'm glad somebody addressed this on X for me. And I just said, hey, man, it's all part of my civic duty here on the show. I'm happy to do it.
Such a nice man.
Just helping out where I can. So this way you don't have to read the Kansas City Star. Steven writes here on X, embarrassing that someone took the time to write this. What a joke. Also asked here on X, Pete, did they put a name on this or hide behind the editorial board? No. This was a news story written by Kason Bayless. So this was written as a straight news story yesterday at the Kansas City Star. This was not an editorial piece. This was a news piece. And this is now how the Kansas City Star is trying to portray this debate. Make it about Pride Month and Pride Month posts. Now, we can go down the whole road of whether or not Royals and teams are going to be posting about Pride Month. We all know they're going to do it, all right? We know they're going to do it. We know it's going to happen. What I found interesting is that the Royals, I guess you would call it Pride Month Eve.
Maverick City Music. I wanted to go see it. I missed it.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of attention, I
Pretty
saw.
good,
Yeah. So they're there on Saturday at the K, and then you flip to Sunday, and it's like, woo, here we go. Rainbows and butterflies and the whole thing, man. I mean, it was so predictable. And something tells me that Maverick City Music was not just available only on Saturday, May 31st. Something tells me that date was booked for a specific reason by the Royals. All right? It's not a coincidence to me at all. Because the people who didn't like the fact that they had a Christian band at the K were suddenly fine on Sunday, and then vice versa. The people happy on Saturday were kind of teed off on Sunday. And around we go. 7:14, bottom of the hour. Dave Traubert's going to be here with the Kansas Policy Institute on a big meeting last night in Prairie Village where they are trying like heck to get a vote on spending $30 million on a new city hall. Where does that stand? He'll tell us on KCMO Talk Radio. 913-408-7957 is how you join us. And I do want to get to this as well coming up. And that is, I got to address tacos. Not because it's Taco Tuesday. That's not why. But I want to address it because people keep giving Trump a hard time over what they call Trump always chickens out, the TACO acronym. But the people that are giving him the hardest time about this are the ones who need to look in the mirror. And I'll explain that next on KCMO Talk Radio.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
Imagine how much Bill O'Reilly sticks out like a sore thumb in Tokyo. I mean, talk about a fish out of water, man.
Was he like 6'2"?
Yeah,
right?
6'4". He's huge. He's pushing 6'5". So just something about Bill and the bombastic nature and approach to which he does everything probably stands out in a place like Tokyo. I'm just going to leave that. And I'm going to reach out to Bill today, try to get him on the show to talk about that trip overseas. As soon as we can get him on here on KCMO Talk Radio. He's also on with the No Spin News, 8 p.m. on weeknights. So it's Taco Tuesday, and for many, this will be another chance to mock Donald Trump. This taco acronym that has taken off over the last week and a half. Trump always chickens out. This has been used by his political opponents as a way to say, oh, here's Trump, big, tough talking guy with the tariffs. But when push comes to shove, he backs off. Well, which way do you want it? The same people who are leaning into taco are the ones who in early April were insisting the world was going to end. Sell all your stocks. Unload it all. Don't use it as a buying opportunity. Your retirement is sunk. It's over. The world is ending. And it's because of Donald Trump's tariffs. And then, over the next several weeks, Trump cuts a couple of deals. He then also, gives some more time to negotiate. And those same people are like, see, he's a chicken. He's well, wait, hold on. Which one is it?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot sit there and say Trump going ahead with tariffs is the most irresponsible thing he could ever do. And oh my goodness, what is wrong with him?
How dare!
As part of his negotiating strategy, sit there and say, what a chicken! What a chicken bleep! This guy, he doesn't have the backbone to stand up to the bad guys and stick with his tariffs. Well, wait, hold on. You were the same people going nuts about this, 6-7 weeks ago, insisting that this was going to be the end of the United States of America and the rest of the world was going to hate us and this was irresponsible and how dare we? And now, he's massaging the situation. He's, picking and choosing some of his battles. He realizes the real enemy here is China, and he's doing some wheeling and dealing. And now he's a chicken? If anything, it would seem to me that the conservative, or at least the conservative base that is supporting Trump, would be the ones who might be able to argue, hey, the Peter Navarros of the world. Hey, Trump, don't be a chicken, stick to the tariffs. But it's the people on the left who hated the tariffs from day one because anything Trump tries to do has got to be the worst thing known to mankind, according to them. So their whole taco thing doesn't actually make any sense.
None whatsoever. A boxer ducking a jab is chickening out, right, to them.
Yeah.
Right? No, that's how you set up a negotiation, You stretch the parameter, and you think that we're weak, but the other company's like, hey, we don't want this crap. I don't think this guy's kidding. Let's talk.
Yes.
We'll talk.
Let's get to the negotiating table. Mm-hmm. That's what this is all about.
The table that you want to seat at, all you Marxists.
Oh, man, that's so good. So I have some people around the office that love to drop the taco thing on me, but they're the same ones who in early April were like, oh, man, I don't think we're going to make it. We're never going to have another sale ever again here at KCMO because of Trump and the tariffs. Oh, my gosh, the world's going to end. Now they love taco. Okay, guys. All right. Pump the brakes. Realize your own hypocrisy for a second, but that would require you to look in the mirror. Now, speaking of looking in the mirror, I would love for some media to do this when it comes to Elon Musk. The Wall Street Journal writing yesterday that Elon Musk was the lowest paid chief executive of an S&P 500 company last year. Tesla paid him $0. The Wall Street Journal notes it's been that way for several years amid a legal battle over a monster stock award back in 2018. A court has twice thrown out Musk's pay package, calling the process of creating it flawed, despite 2 votes of support from shareholders. Elon shared this yesterday and said $0 for 7 years, despite increasing the value of the company by $2,000. Or, excuse me, 2,000%. Huh. Some Nazi this Elon Musk guy is, huh? I mean, he really stinks at this whole thing. Trying to take down the government, one Doge employee at a time, giving Nazi salutes, the whole thing. But here he is as arguably the Einstein of our generation and another guy who was treated like dirt. Oh, do we have some breaking news here?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me look at this. Thank you, fellas.
Cancel that blue alert.
Okay.
Got the guy.
They got the SOB. Very good.
In Ellis, Kansas.
All right.
Seems like he was heading to Colorado, possibly.
There you go. Thomas Tolbert, the man who allegedly shot the Lee Summit police officer on Sunday night, has been caught in Ellis, Kansas. Man, population 1,921, right there off I-70 out west of Hayes. So, yeah, Mark, maybe he was heading out there towards Colorado. But they got him. Well done. How about a round of applause here for the men and women of law enforcement? Well done, everybody. Well done. Get him back here pronto. Let Melissa Johnson go to town on this guy. Let's go. Coming up, Dave Traubert with the Kansas Policy Institute is going to be here. A local municipality wants to vote on constructing a $30 million city hall. What happened? He'll tell us next.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
All they want is a vote. Prairie Village residents are overwhelmingly interested in voting on a proposed $30 million project to rebuild and renovate City Hall. The Sentinel wrote about this yesterday. Dave Traubert is here with the Kansas Policy Institute on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Dave, good morning. Take me through when you saw the polling that was, of course, conducted, that Prairie Village residents just want to vote on a $30 million City Hall project. What was your takeaway from that poll?
Well, good morning, Pete. First of all, it was no surprise that the vast majority of people want to vote. It's an important issue. It's a lot of money. A lot of people are saying, not just in Prairie Village, all around the state, that their property taxes are already too high. And so it makes perfect sense that they would want to vote. 85% of the survey respondents said there should be an election. Only 6% said there should not. And I think it was 66% said they would not be willing to pay higher property tax 68% not willing to pay higher property tax for this City Hall project.
So here's I agree. And obviously the folks who are wanting the vote are ones that I overwhelmingly agree with on a lot of the things happening there in Prairie Village. But where do you draw the line when it comes to, hey, we elect people to really any level of government to make these decisions, and the change that you want to see has to come from changing the elected representatives? Where do you draw that line in terms of what's appropriate and what's not when it comes to a vote of the people?
Well, that's a great question, Pete, and you certainly can't do it you can't have a vote of the people on every issue. But this is the biggest project in the city's history, probably. When you know there's controversy, you know that there are some people who are saying this is a problem, why would you not want to get public input? I mean, personally, I think the action of city council compared to, knowing what we know, I'd say the majority of city council knows the public does not want this, so they're not going to let them vote because they're going to do what they want. And that is not representative government.
You're right. But then how we always handle this is we go to the polls and we kick the people out that don't listen to their own constituents, right? Listen, I want to see them get a vote here, but it is a slippery slope to say, what do you vote on? What do you not vote on? Especially when the city council is saying here in part, hey, by the way, there is no tax increase for this, so there's no need for this to go to a vote. That's what they're alleging. Is that a wrong allegation?
Oh, of course it is. It's nonsense. You have to read very carefully what they put on their website. They said it will not cause an increase in the mill rate. Well, even if that's true, if your valuation of your house goes up, you're going to pay higher taxes. And they have to collect money to pay off the debt. So if you didn't take on the debt, then your taxes would be lower. Of course, there's going to be a tax increase. And this goes to just the overall deceptive nature of the city officials. They put on their website that 2/3 of the money is already in the budget. No, it's not. We asked them to show us where it says that, and the only response coming back was it just made no sense whatsoever. There is no cash flow analysis published with this, so that residents would understand if the allegations are correct. You want to be able to see when debt is going to be paid off. You want to see what the annual cash flow is. They won't show that. If they have it, they may not even have it, which is, I guess, even worse. There's just no reason. Go ask people, what is it you think really would be? This is not like your monthly issue that comes up. This is the biggest expenditure this city is going to face, and they are knowingly ignoring and defying public will.
Dave Trauber, Kansas Policy Institute. What is the justification for a $30 million city hall in Prairie Village outside of looking nice?
Well, there's all kinds of justifications on paper, but it doesn't need to be that much money. There's other options. The first question is, why do we need something new to begin with? I mean, there has to be justification for. There may be some very valid need for some modernization, but this is not a city that's growing.
I feel like it can't really grow. I mean, Prairie Village is kind of maxed out, right?
It is. So why do we need to grow government when the population is not growing?
I was going to say they can actually grow it up. I mean, that's what they want to do. They can only grow it in one direction, and that's up with multi-unit.
And they don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, the city council members do. The people of the town don't, but I think council members do.
Right. Yeah. So it's a sad situation. You know, you've got the majority of city council clearly understands that they're defying their voters, and they're just going to do what they want.
I want to get your take on this, Dave. This is a broader part of this conversation in Prairie Village, and we've talked about this. Municipalities getting fat, getting very frothy here the last few years. Of course, it's very prevalent across Johnson County. We are seeing now a record divide between the number of home sellers out there and home buyers. Buyers are sitting on the sidelines right now. Rates are too high. Home prices are, frankly, too high. And there are way more sellers than there are buyers. I'm not predicting some type of crash. I don't think that's fair to do right now. But if we enter a reset of the housing market here at some point in the next 12, 18, 24 months, whatever that looks like, and home prices come down, well, these municipalities that got really, really fat in the last few years on these home valuations skyrocketing, how will their budgets be impacted? What does that mean for the way that they have grown? What does that mean over the last half decade in places like Overland Park and Olathe and all across Johnson County? What does that look like then at a time when people are dealing with record high interest rates, at least in recent memory, record high home prices, and record high property taxes? I mean, it's all coming to a head. And if they can't keep the charade up, something's going to crack, and it could get pretty ugly here.
That's a great observation, Pete. And I think the answer to your question is to look historically at what cities or counties have done. And in this case, you've seen the Prairie Village City Council just march forward with one big property tax increase after another. If they can't do it pretending to not do increases by taking in big valuation increases, they'll just raise the mill rate. I mean, you look at what Prairie Village has done since 1997, they've increased property tax revenue almost 4 times the combined rate of inflation and population. They'll just shift the variable from taking it from valuation to taking it from a mill increase. This is not a government that is very open with its citizens. We just yesterday received our reaction to our open records request for the city payroll, and that's going to be published later this week. So we're going to give people a chance to see how their tax dollars are being spent and let them make their own decisions.
And I just saw this. I'll leave you on this, Dave Traubert. Overland Park released its 2026 budget, and property tax revenue is up to $93 million. In 2018, it was at $52 million. I mean, they have nearly doubled that number in less than a decade in property tax revenues coming courtesy of or in the town of Overland Park. That's just nuts. $52 million in 2018, $93 million the proposed property tax revenue for 2026.
And they're sitting on tens of millions of dollars in cash reserves, which is money they've taken in but not spent. And that just goes to underscore my point about Prairie Village. Government will continue to spend, and without regard to what the public wants or without regard to what is necessary to efficiently provide services. And that's why it's so important for the Kansas legislature to rein this in. Unfortunately, too many Democrats and Republicans in the Kansas legislature don't want to alienate their city officials because that might interfere with them getting reelected. We went into the 25 legislative session with Republicans in the House and Senate saying property tax reform is the number one issue. I mean, it was going to be steamrolled, and then nothing happened. And the reason nothing happened is that we had a lot of pushback from city and county officials and school officials. Don't hold us accountable. How dare you?
Yeah.
And they said, okay, never mind. We'll figure out a way to make sure this doesn't happen.
Dave Traubert, Kansas Policy Institute. Find the article on Prairie Village at the Sentinel. Dave, thank you so much, my man. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Pete. Have a good day.
There you go. The breaking news here in the last 15 minutes. Thomas Tolbert, the man accused of shooting a Lee Summit police officer on Sunday night, was caught in Ellis, Kansas. And this guy not only is a sleazeball and allegedly a criminal, he's also an idiot. We'll tell you why based on how they caught him and where they caught him next.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
Book 'em, Dano. 7:52. They have caught Thomas Tolbert. The blue alert has ended for a man believed to have been the one who shot a Missouri police officer on Sunday night. Kansas Bureau of Investigation making the report and the announcement this morning. According to a press release, the alert was canceled in the last 30 minutes when 27-year-old Thomas Eugene Tolbert was found and arrested in Ellis, Kansas, just off I-70 west of Hayes. He is the one who was accused of shooting a Lee Summit police officer on Sunday night outside of an apartment complex in what was a domestic dispute. So KCTV5 reports here, law enforcement officials were notified early this morning that Tolbert might be in an Ellis, Kansas hotel. The Hayes Police Department, Ellis County Sheriff's Office, and KBI responded to the hotel and were able to take him into custody at about 4:50 this morning. Oh, man. Listen, I don't want to help criminals evade law enforcement, alleged criminals evade law enforcement. But how dumb do you have to be the most wanted man in the entire region, having your mugshot plastered all over local news, and decide you're going to check into a hotel in Ellis, Kansas?
The one hotel in town.
Well, yeah, and you're like the third black guy to ever show up in Ellis, Kansas. Let's just be honest here. I looked it up in the last few minutes. Ellis, Kansas has a population of 1,958, and the black population in Ellis, Kansas is 0.15%. I did the math. That means there are 2.9 black people in Ellis, Kansas.
Maybe somebody's pregnant.
2.937, I think, is the exact number. Let's round it up. 3 black people in Ellis, Kansas. You show up when your mugshot's plastered all over the news. Now, I know in Hayes, they're not getting Kansas City news. They're probably getting Wichita news, I would imagine, maybe Topeka. I don't know for sure. But this news story has been blasted all over the entire region. I got a push notification from law enforcement. I'm sure we all did yesterday on our cell phones. I got one after we got off the air at their cell phones. I got one middle of the afternoon. I was at the gym. I got one at like 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock on this guy. So we haven't had something like this in a while where the entire region, multiple states, are searching for this one man who shot a cop. What does this guy do? He checks into a hotel, sticking out like a sore thumb in the one hotel in Ellis, Kansas. I mean, man, you have got to be so dense.
He could have at least gone to the Ellis Lakeside campground.
I mean, something. Sleep in your car. Now, I'm glad he's a fool. I'm so glad he was caught. Get him back here and make sure that Jackson County Prosecutor Melissa Johnson, just goes to town on this guy in a way that Jean Peters Baker never did 6 years ago.
Well, she's already filed the charges, so that's step one right there. Yeah, head of JPB.
She has filed the charges here in Jackson
Before
County.
they had him in custody. Now they do.
She did this yesterday against Thomas Tolbert. First-degree assault, second-degree domestic assault, armed criminal action, unlawful possession of a firearm, and resisting arrest. Get him back here and go to town, Melissa Johnson. But, boy, I'm glad these guys are just complete and utter fools. Hey, what should I do? Gosh, I need to rest. Where do I rest? Should I keep going to Denver? Might not stick it. I'm just going to crash in Ellis, Kansas tonight.
Say this exit with the largest ball of twine looks interesting.
The Ellis Railroad Museum's very nice.
There you go. Yeah, sure. I like trains. Pete likes trains. Pete Buttigieg, that is.
You have just got to be an absolute fool if you're Thomas Tolbert to stop at Ellis, Kansas, of all places. Man, I'll tell you what, these guys, you can't make them up. Oh, my gosh. Get his butt back here as quick as you can and make sure that he does not see daylight ever again in his adult life. I don't know if that's possible. He's only 27 years old. But you know what? Better be a long time before this guy is smelling freedom, as far as I'm concerned. Wow. Good job out there at Ellis, Kansas, by the way. I don't know who it was. If it was the front desk person at the one hotel in Ellis who was like, this doesn't feel right. Oh, that's him. Okay, let's call the I don't know. We'll find out more. But, man, good thing this guy's not a Mensa member. I'll leave it at that. Carl Oakman, KCK police chief, is going to be here in studio coming up. He was just down at the border with Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. He'll tell us what he saw firsthand next. 8:05 as we roll through it here on KCMO. We are happy to welcome on and say good morning in studio to Carl Oakman. He is the police chief of Kansas City, Kansas, joining us on 95.7 FM. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app after a trip to the Arizona border. Good morning, Chief. How are you, and how was that trip?
First of all, thank you for having me, and good morning. Very eye-opening trip.
So where were you exactly?
We were actually on the southern Arizona border, right to the south of a city called Sierra Vista, Arizona.
Okay. So what brought you to that part of the border in particular?
Well, one of the things when you talk about KCK in general, as well as the state of Kansas and the metro in general, is, our battle with fentanyl, illegal narcotics. Arizona, based on intelligence, is the 100% source of fentanyl coming across the U.S. border. In the city of Nogales, there's a Nogales, Arizona, and a Nogales in Mexico. And that border crossing is one of the hottest border crossings for drug smuggling.
What makes it such a prime spot for the drug traffickers?
Because you can mix in with all the commerce, the 18-wheelers. We were there, and I'll get into it in a second, but we flew over the actual border crossing in Black Hawk helicopters, and you could see on both sides the traffic was backed up for miles, and the majority was large trucks and, heavy equipment. So you could see the opportunity to smuggle in illegal narcotics.
And is there just not the level of enforcement that needs to be there to figure out what's in each one of these 18-wheelers? Is that why this stuff gets through?
Well, I think there's a combination of different intelligence needs. And when you talk about not just Nogales, but when you look at the rest of the border, going to the east and to the west, that's where the enforcement kind of drops off, just for the lack of resources.
Mm-hmm. So you're down there. You saw it by air. You saw it on the ground. What stood out to you the most on this trip?
Well, I think the number one thing, shockingly, was the cooperation between Border Patrol, the U.S. military, and the county sheriff's departments. As well as the Mexican government putting troops on their side of the border.
And that's a new development, as I understand it, right?
Yes, yes.
Wow. So they're actually doing their part, it seems like. I did see a stat the other day that the fentanyl is decreasing over the last few months in the United States as the border's been obviously more locked down than it was the last few years. Was that also what you heard being down there? Even though it's still problematic, it has gotten better?
Right. It has gotten better. I would say the best improvement was the illegal crossings.
Yeah.
But from riding with one of the Cochise County deputies, he's responsible. Him and another deputy are on the ranch unit. They're responsible. Two guys are responsible for 86 miles of border. And one of the things he said is that the challenge is still with the drug smuggling. For example, he said that what the cartel would do, they would have 20 people run across the border. Well, the three fastest guys would carry the fentanyl. And, 2 Border Patrol agents, a county sheriff. He said, we can catch about 15 of them, but the fast guys, they get through, get on a car, and up to Phoenix, and then it gets distributed throughout the United States.
I'm just picturing and I don't want to make light of this at all, but they figure out the 3 fastest guys. What do they have, like an NFL combine drill set up? They do like a 3-cone drill, 40-yard dash. Fastest guys are the guys smuggling the fentanyl and just sprinting like hell.
Yeah, you'd be surprised of the tactics. Like I said, when we were there on foot at the wall, there was a part of the border wall that had ended once the new administration took over in 2020 and stopped the construction. Well, you could see the border wall just stops in the middle of the mountain, going up the mountain on the other side, Mexico. And as we were looking, we could see these little figures running across over to the Mexican side. And then when we got in the binoculars, we could see them. They were up there in the trees, looked like they were smoking, weed there, looking at us through binoculars.
But they're on the Mexico side, so at that point, you just got to kind of stare at each other, right?
Yes, and basically their surveillance for the cartel. Basically, what they do is they'll sit there for days looking at the border, and on top of this mountain, they could see a good 30 miles down the border. So they'll look and see where there's a good hole for them to run people across.
Wow. Carl Oakman is the Kansas City, Kansas police chief on KCMO. He was just at the border with the Kansas U.S. Senator Roger Marshall. So take it back home. I mean, we know this fentanyl issue is prevalent in not just urban cores. It's a problem in suburban America. It's a problem in rural America. It really doesn't have any boundaries. So what are the issues that you're facing in KCK right now on this front?
Well, I think it's the same thing that everyone else is dealing with, is just the wide variety of people selling it.
Mm-hmm.
Where you used to have, okay, we got, this gang, we know they're selling this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I mean, they're just about everyone's selling it. Our violent criminals are selling it. And that's where we've noticed in KCK early on the connection between fentanyl and violent crime. And it's just prevalent.
Is it people selling fentanyl directly, or is it a lot of this, like they're selling these other street drugs that are laced with fentanyl and the dealers may not even be aware it's laced with fentanyl?
Yeah, I always call it the quadruplets. So when we hit a house based on, responding on a drug overdose and tracing it back to the dealer, what we find in the house, and I call it the quadruplets, it's fentanyl, marijuana, methamphetamine, and guns.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we find. And so what we're starting to see is the fentanyl being laced in the marijuana, and really that's pretty much the drug of choice right now to lace it.
Because it's just still so prevalently used.
Yes.
Even though it's legal, I mean, not on the Kansas side, but it seems like that has not stopped the illegal purchasing of marijuana by a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest farce going, is that marijuana is this innocent drug that doesn't affect anyone. And, first of all, they're going to continue to buy it illegally because it's cheaper.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're down at the border, and obviously, you're trying to figure out how to
these sheriff's department really getting those contacts, because they have a special operation group. They call it SABRE, and they attack the southern border, and they have a lot of other elements attached to them, such as the Border Patrol, some of the other federal agencies. And so really having those contacts, because we have traced some stuff back to Kansas and KCK in particular, especially the cartels that are operating in that central area on the other side of the border in Arizona. There is some connections to KCK.
Well, really? Okay. So why KCK? Is there a reason that KCK has become a area that these cartels have direct connections and direct lines of communication?
Well, I think it's when you look at the I-35 corridor, and then you look at really the percentage of Mexican nationals that we do have in KCK. There is some connection, because here's another side of this that I think isn't really talked about a lot. And this information I got from the deputies and those who are working down on the border. A lot of the migrants that come over illegally, they're paying the cartel to get over here, and they never work off that fee.
Yeah.
Even when they work it off, they're always indebted to the cartel. So that's how they get that connection. Even when you talk about these labor organizations, they're connected, where they actually are paying these organizations. These labor organizations are giving a cut to them to hire these illegal migrants to do this. And they're working off their fee to the cartel or whatever criminal group got them across the border. But it never ends. They keep paying. It's a lifetime payment.
Well, even if you monetarily pay it off, what I'm hearing, there still is, it's kind of like being in the mob or being in a gang. You're never officially paid off. They always know where you're at, and if they need something out of you, you got no choice.
Yeah, and when you look at it, and that's why I say when you look at, one of the deputies have told me they were dealing with about 8,000 people in their particular area crossing the border every month. Now that's down to 1,000. But what they're still struggling with is the drugs to 1,000 and the human trafficking.
Wow. Carl Oakman is here, KCK Police Chief. So when you look at this from the standpoint of KCK and Kansas City at large, what would you say to other area law enforcement officers in terms of what they need to be looking out for, what they need to be aware of based on your trip?
Well, I would say is you have to respond and start the investigation. Because if you're not investigating it, you're never going to trace it back to where it's coming from. And so the insight I got on the border is really looking at how this stuff is starting from step one and how it's ending up in KCK. And one other thing I want to mention is Fort Riley, their air defense unit, aviation defense unit, is deployed down there out of Fort Huachuca, if I can pronounce that correctly, Arizona. And, you know, I was so proud to really have the opportunity with Senator Marshall to have lunch with these men and women who are out here on the front lines of the border. And I mean, some of these kids are 19, 20, and I mean, just their commitment. And I mean, it was just a great time having lunch with that whole military unit.
And they're fighting arguably the most important fight we've got right now in this country. I mean, we are seeing, sadly, record levels of drug poisonings courtesy of fentanyl. I mean, literally, it is killing especially young Americans at a record-setting rate, and these men and women from Fort Riley are on the front lines of trying to stop it.
Yeah, and you look at, one of the generals, he mentioned that, it's preparing us for future combat because we're dealing with the rough terrain in Arizona. And Arizona, I don't know if you've been along the border.
No.
I mean, it is desolate. It's desert. It's mountain. It is tough terrain. So the 10th Mountain Division is down there with Fort Riley. And, I mean, they're doing operations. They cover, that particular installation covers would be the eastern part of California to El Paso, Texas, that borderline. And, they talk about New Mexico is wide open.
Yeah.
That's one of the areas that they're really struggling with.
Chief Oakman, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate the time.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Carl Oakman, the KCK Police Chief on KCMO, fresh off his trip to the border with Senator Marshall. We have a Tirade Tuesday coming up in 15 minutes. That's all on you. Don't let us down. We'll get to it on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
On Tuesday's Guy Benson Show from Minnesota, we'll be in the homeland of jazz hands. Tim Walz, we'll talk about him. Tommy Lahren joins the program coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
That may be the greatest Guy Benson tease ever. Homeland of jazz hands. Tim Walz. This guy's all over the map. I mean, Guy was in Poland last week. He's at the Reagan Library doing his show. Now he's in Minnesota, and he's coming our way to Kansas City next week. We've got our big Guy Benson personal appearance, meet and greet, dinner, show, the whole deal. And there are like a dozen tickets left if you want to buy them at KCMOTalkRadio.com. The land of jazz hands, Tim Walz. That's outstanding. Well done. We have Tirade Tuesday coming up in 10 minutes. So sometimes you get these rainy mornings and the tirades are slow to come in. Don't let them be slow. Get them ripping and roaring here on a Tuesday morning, all right? Manny Abarca still has a missing persons report out for him and his 2-year-old son. He's the Jackson County legislator who showed up to his meeting yesterday, and he showed up by Zoom. Meantime, there's a missing persons report for him and his 2-year-old son that was filed by his wife. So I don't know what's going on here. This appears to be a messy domestic dispute of sorts going on with the Abarcas. I'm just hoping that things work out for the family, for the kids. KCTV5 reported on this yesterday.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
That's Manny Abarca doing the Pledge of Allegiance via Zoom at a Jackson County legislative meeting when there's a missing persons report filed on his behalf. That is like, you can't make this story up. He's doing leading the Pledge of Allegiance with a missing persons report actively out there on him in the state of Kansas.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Also breaking tonight at 5, Manny Abarca makes an appearance virtually at today's Jackson County Legislature meeting for the first time since being labeled as missing. Tonight, police are trying to find Abarca and his son even as he conducts the business of the county. KCTV5's Ali Espinoza is live downtown right now. Ali, what do we know about the search and Abarca's responses?
Yeah, Brad, as we just saw, Abarca did virtually attend that legislative meeting that happened just around 2 hours ago. And as we heard, he did lead the Pledge of Allegiance. But this is a situation that has a lot of people and county officials scratching their heads. Questions are still swarming about Jackson County legislator Manny Abarca and his 2-year-old son's whereabouts, even for his colleague.
Just curiosity, really, wondering what was going on. He seemed normal. I didn't know anything was happening. He asked questions, or answered questions, I should say, that constituents asked. Seemed fine.
Alexis tells us an incident happened at Abarca's father's house. We stopped by, neighbors only wanted to speak off camera and said police were at the home Sunday.
Just that I hope everything's okay with all of them, and I'm confident that this will work itself out.
That's the voice of Sean Smith, Jackson County lawmaker, who has worked closely, even though he's a Republican, Abarca's a Democrat. They've worked closely, especially on the property tax issue and also in the attempt to oust Frank White as Jackson County executive. Now, here's another twist to this story, though. Frank White recently launched a misconduct investigation of Abarca, citing what White considered to be Abarca's abusive treatment of county employees. So this thing is just getting uglier and nastier by the day for Manny Abarca, who does have big aspirations politically in this town. I don't know what this will do to them right now. Frankly, all I care about is the safety of his children in particular. And I sent him a text yesterday. He's got an iPhone. We've texted before, and it's blue. But it came through green, and I just said, praying for your family, hope things work out, and everybody is well. But it went through green, and I didn't hear back. So I don't know, but this thing is not trending in a positive direction as of now. Coming up next, Tirade Tuesday. The phones are open. Let's make it a good one. 913-408-7957. Your tirades on a Tuesday next.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
It's a Tuesday. It is 8:30 on KCMO. And with the rain falling, it is time for one of our favorite segments of the week that's only as good as you make it.
It's time for Tirade Tuesday on 95.7 FM and 710 AM KCMO.
How dare you?
It's morning, so it's Mundo.
This segment's all about you. It is only as good as you make it. The ranting on whatever's on your mind before you get to the office. We do not determine the direction. You do here on a Tirade Tuesday. Let's start with Charlie in Bonner Springs. Go ahead there, Chuck.
I taught college for 30 years at a local school. When I was a non-citizen, they tried to get me to sign up to vote, even though I was not a citizen at the time. They shamed me into taking COVID shots. I've since retired, and I'm sick and tired of seeing my former colleagues on social media calling Trump a C. Yes, you heard me correctly, a C, and an MFer. These people need to be held accountable. I'm sick and tired of it. What are we going to do about it? Thank you very much.
Well, we still have free speech in America, so, all you can do is decide whether or not you want to be friends with people. But
I know you are, but what am I?
I know. Listen, trust me. We understand. We understand TDS is real, but I'm not doing anything with anybody who's calling Trump whatever name you want to throw at him.
A strong call from Bonner Springs.
Yes. Yeah, Bonner kicking it off hot and heavy. Stephen, Casey.
And get them on the bus and get them the hell out of here. Right now, Kansas City, KCK still has the sanctuary city policy of not allowing their police force to work with federal agents. And until they change that policy, that's been their policy for years, for about 30 years at least, I know. They make money off the illegal immigrants.
Are you sure? Because I saw, I'm not denying, I'm just saying, I saw the Kansas Senate President Ty Masterson on social media 2 nights ago make an allegation that Douglas County, where Lawrence is still not abiding by federal immigration laws. But he didn't say anything about Wyandotte.
Well, you know what I haven't seen, Pete, is I haven't seen ICE agents and federal agents downtown at the Wyandotte County Jail emptying it out. You know, I know people, jailers that work there, I won't name their names, but they get empty out about 10% of that jail, getting rid of people with gun possession, DUIs, and fentanyl possession. And they're illegal aliens. And until you get ICE agents in here, I can't take the man seriously. Him, Mark Dupree, and Tyrone Gardner got a chance to make a good name for themselves. They are doing some good work, but they could do better.
All right.
They could do better, and let's get Tom Homan in here, get their butts on a bus, and get them the hell out of here.
Well, if Tom Homan wants to come, he's got barbecue on me. But, he's a busy guy. Thank you very much there, Steve. I appreciate it. But, yes, that's my offer. Tom Homan's been on the show, director of ICE, and we like him here on KCMO. But, listen, he's got a lot of people pulling him in a lot of directions. 913-408-7957 on a Tirade Tuesday. The phones are open for you. Let's go to Steve in KCMO. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I love what Elon Musk has done and USAID and cutting all the foreign aid, the money that we're spending overseas. But there's one recipient that is receiving U.S. aid that exceeds all other nations combined by a factor of 2. And this country provides a $1,000 a month universal basic income to every adult citizen. And yet they're bleeding us dry. The United States is not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to talk about it. And it's the state of Israel. We are subsidized. We'd be rich if it weren't for the state of Israel and how much money we provide them. That's my tirade.
We'd be rich if it wasn't for the state of Israel. Woo! All right.
Fund for their NGO. If they pulled that back and reallocated it, maybe perhaps the money would be there. But the problem is that with Job Corps is that they brought these kids in. They had to meet certain criteria, certain income, certain criteria to be able to be brought in. So these are low-income kids that had no chance, and they were literally escaping. And their parents, both parents are using drugs. They have no place to go home to. And my stepson said he's walking down the hallways and listening to kids crying and asking what's going on. He goes, and they said, I'm 18 and I'm going to be homeless. He goes, this was my shot to actually get a career and find a place for myself. And he goes, now I'm going to be homeless. And he said, not just one, but a lot of kids are just like, I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be homeless. And these are kids that are, you know, in the prime. I mean, they need to learn what they need to do to set for their goals for them to be able to succeed. And it's being taken out from underneath them in a very harsh way.
Yeah, this is being paused by the Department of Labor.
Yes. And that's the thing, is that, you know, of all the things that they could have slush funded when the Democrats were throwing all the gold overboard when they knew the ship was sinking, you know, they could have at least thrown one brick of gold this way. But anyhow, and they knew this was happening beforehand. So I do know that Trump was being set up on this, you know, by the Democrats, because they don't take a dump without a plan. The communists don't. But anyhow, that these kids, they have no place to go. They're wondering what's going on, and they were promised housing for at least 6 months after they got out, and a job, and be able to work on their own and be able to achieve.
I got it, John. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate the call. Let's go to Jeff and Shawnee. What's your tirade, Jeff? Go.
What great calls. I don't know if I'll be able to match up to that. Hey, 10, 15 years ago, everything was about the Amazon rainforest, and, you know, we got to go paperless, man, and email me, man. We're trying to get our paper down. Now we got a corporation called Amazon, and I get a box about the size of a refrigerator for a toothbrush and toothpaste, deodorant every month, and plastic packages. I guess we don't care about the Amazon rainforest anymore.
Hey,
man. I guess I just want.
Take it easy on them. Jeff, take it easy on them, buddy. At least they're driving electric cars.
Yeah, but the crazy thing, it's called Amazon. Man, we just tore down Amazon for him to build boxes. I mean, when I come home from the lake, I come home from the lake yesterday, I thought I worked as a UPS warehouse, man.
Yeah.
I had boxes out here like it's Christmas. Nobody cares about that anymore. It just cracks me up.
Oh, Jeff, that is an outstanding tirade, buddy. That is so good. You are.
Hey, I appreciate cat food. I got a box in a box. Yeah. Is actually what I get, right?
Oh, that's outstanding. Nice job there. 913-408-7957, Tirade Tuesday. Mark at Overland Park, go.
Hey, Pete, we know that you're a father of 3 daughters and you love sports. And over this past week, there's been numerous state track meets all across the country. And the number of boys who are winning girls' events is disgusting. And all these kids are at least 18 or younger. And my question is, where are the parents with these kids? And this all starts at home.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're right. You're right there, Mark. But you know what? Even in California, you are seeing massive blowback on this. I don't think that would have happened 4 or 5 years ago. In California, parents are rising up. They're not shamed into allowing their daughters to be beat by boys in track, in this case, in the most recent story that's gotten national attention. And that, to me, is a massive step in the right direction. Pierce and Lenexa, go ahead, Pierce. What is your tirade?
Hey, Pete. Yeah, just a quick little tirade for all our construction crew and everybody that's been working on our roads. Number one, really appreciate everything that they're doing. But number two, can we please get some signs like a half a mile to a mile out saying this lane is closed? Because every time you run up on one of those constructions, like, let's say the left lane's closed, you don't know that, but everybody's, just running down one lane, and it creates such a headache, and it's such a time waster. Like, just 1 or 2 simple signs will do.
Yep, that's well said. Pierce, thank you. That happened to me. Oh, I guess it was last Wednesday. I was driving down to Lamar with the Mark Alford event, and I don't spend a lot of time on 71 Highway, of course, turns into 49. And I was maybe, 20, 30 minutes south of Kansas City, and the left lane ended due to construction. And I was in the left lane. I didn't really understand that it was going to happen as quickly as it did. And of course, some douchebag in the middle lane nearly peels me off and takes off my side view mirror because he didn't want to let me in.
No.
I'm not going to let him in. Yeah. And I was like, dude, I didn't even realize the lane was ending this quickly. Just relax. But he almost took off my side view mirror, John.
The situation is, they'll say, hey, construction coming June 2nd. Well, I'm going to plan an alternative route. Oh, guess what? They're building on the alternative route, too. The problem is they don't have enough cones to mark a mile out because we got too many damn projects going on at once. All the cones are split up and divided out.
Did you want to end Tirade Tuesday yourself?
Oh, no, I was just echoing a sentiment.
Okay, John in Grandview, great tirade there, buddy. Nice job. Well done. There you go. Tirade Tuesday in the books. Mark, you got one as well? You want to throw one into the mix a little bit here since John got to do a tirade on Tirade Tuesday?
Youth sports. No, I don't need to.
You got
I'm
nothing?
good.
Okay. All right. There you go. Nice job. Mark's just trying to hit his parlay with Jack Caglione tonight.
That's right.
In the lineup. That's all
We'll
he
talk
cares
about that tomorrow after it happens.
Yeah. Hopefully you show up to work. You don't make too much money tonight. Oh, man. Coming up,
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Headline in The Athletic, now owned by the New York Times. It dropped on Friday by Nate Taylor. And we didn't spend really any time on it yesterday, but there was something in this that stood out to me that I wanted to address because it's something that I don't think we've spent a lot of time discussing when it comes to the future of these two franchises and what is next for them. Headline here in The Athletic read on Friday, a renovated Arrowhead or a dome in Kansas, inside the Chiefs' looming stadium decision. And I'm reading through this piece, and it's nothing that we haven't talked about here on the show. Of course, when you think about the future of these two teams, we all know what the deadlines are. We all know right now there's a special session in Jeff City. We know the Star Bond offer in Kansas ends on June 30th. It could be extended one more year. It has not been extended for another year. But as you go through this article, and it's long, it's well done, it's probably a couple thousand words. Article notes here, if the Chiefs choose to renovate Arrowhead, one question looms over Clark Hunt and Mark Donovan, the team president. Can the city and team build an entertainment district with restaurants, a shopping mall, and hotels in the Truman Sports Complex, which is located in Independence? They write here. Last July, Donovan said the overwhelming answer he heard from developers was no. Donovan said, you're not going to see a Power and Light, but you could see other entities that would have some relevance to game day. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, okay, why do we, the fan, who enjoy going to Arrowhead to tailgate with friends, right? Got your parking spot, know exactly where you want to be, going to watch a football game. Why do we care? Or why should we care as to whether or not the team is able to build Power and Light, no pun intended, out of the Truman Sports Complex? The Royals at least have an argument here. And I'm not saying it's a great argument, but the economics of baseball are so screwed up because there's no salary cap that the argument from mid to small market teams is we need to create additional revenue streams because we can't make as much money as the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Mets on our local TV deals, that we've got to create additional revenue streams to try to then use that money, dump it into the team to keep our payroll somewhat competitive with the big markets because there's no salary cap in baseball. The Dodgers can have a $400 million salary cap or salaries for their players, and the Tampa Bay Rays can have a $40 million salary cap for their players. You just pick and choose based on basically how cheap or how rich your owner is. That's it. In the NFL, that's not the case. Everybody plays by the same rules when it comes to the salary cap. So it's not like this is about the Chiefs making more money to then use it to make sure you can pay Patrick Mahomes. The Royals can at least say, hey, you want to keep Bobby Witt? You want to keep Jack Caglione? Well, guess what? We've got to figure out how to create more revenue streams to then use that money to invest in the teams. That's not the case in the NFL. So I don't know why, frankly, anybody cares or should care about what kind of entertainment the Chiefs can build out at Arrowhead. Now, if it's just about them making as much money as they possibly can, God bless them. I'm a capitalist. If Clark Hunt wants to make even more money, he should be allowed to do that. And if the Hunt empire wants to grow with entertainment inside the Truman Sports Complex, fantastic. Good on them. They are entitled to do just that. But it does nothing, absolutely nothing for the average fan who's not thinking about that in large part when they're going to a game. And there's no argument to make about how you have to do this to keep up with the Dallas Cowboys or keep up with the LA Rams or the New York Giants, because that's not how the economics of the NFL works. You are in a position right now for the Chiefs where you're not held back by being traditionally a smaller market. The NFL has it right. It's in part why it's the most competitive sport in America and the most popular sport in America. They really want to create an equal playing field where your market size is irrelevant to how successful you can be on the field. So this pitch and this part of this article in the New York Times, The Athletic, where the Chiefs are trying to figure out, hey, what can we do on game day? How can we make more money? At least from the baseball side of it, you can see where there's value to the fans. If the fans say, hey, we need these other revenue streams for our team to stay competitive or as competitive as we can. In the NFL, it is completely irrelevant and meaningless. It's just about the team trying to make more money, which they are entitled to do. But at what point does the taxpayer, at what point does the legislature, at what point does the governor say, you know what? I mean, we want you guys. We really do. We think that we have a great complex. We've supported you as a state. We've supported you as a city. But this is kind of like all in your wheelhouse and about you making more money. It's not really about our taxpayer, and it's not really about our fan experience as much as you want to bill it as that. It's a bottom line play. But let's just call it what it is. 913-408-7957. News coming up in 2 minutes. And then an angle on this guy who was just busted out in western Kansas regarding the shooting of the Lee Summit police officer that I thought the media locally here royally butchered. I'll explain it, and we've got the audio to back it up. Coming up next on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. There are a lot of angles to this man who shot a police officer in Lee's Summit. And nowhere near the top 3 on that list would be, boy, what's going on with domestic violence? Now, don't misunderstand and don't mishear what I just said. I did not say that the domestic violence part of the story is not important. What I did say is that it's not a top 2 or top 3 issue that one Kansas City media outlet made it into yesterday. So first off, an update here on this story. We now do know that Thomas Tolbert has been arrested. The blue alert has been canceled after he was found at 4:50 this morning in Ellis, Kansas. 27-year-old Thomas Eugene Tolbert, who allegedly shot the Lee Summit police officer on Sunday night outside of an apartment complex after that cop responded to a domestic dispute, has been caught. So that's outstanding news. Woo! Now, I would recommend to not stop in Ellis, Kansas, okay, when you're on the run and the entire region is looking for you. Going to a town of population 1,900 with 1 days in as a black male in Ellis, Kansas is probably not the best play. I know that is maybe somewhat controversial to some of you, but I looked it up, just the numbers. Ellis, Kansas has a black population of 0.15%. That means there are 2.9 black people in Ellis, Kansas. I don't think that's the place to go and try to hide out for a night in a hotel at the Days Inn. That's just dumb. Now, I'm glad that this alleged violent criminal is not a Mensa member. But I'm like, oh my goodness, these people don't think for 5 seconds. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb in Ellis, Kansas. I just say it. Oh, man. But thankfully, law enforcement got him. And nice job by the Hayes Police Department, Ellis County Sheriff's Office, and the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. They showed up at 4:50 this morning, and they arrested him. Now, this story is about a guy who back in 2019 shot at a KCPD officer. That is something that happened that Brad Lemon, who is the Fraternal Order of Police president for Kansas City, Missouri, noted on Facebook yesterday. Said this guy led KCPD officers on a car chase back in 2019, jumped out of his car and started shooting at the police. The officers returned fire, wounded him, and placed him in custody. He adds here that Gene Peters Baker hated the police and offered him an offered plea and gave him just over 1 year in prison. And he immediately returned to beating the women in his life. So that's story number one. Soft on crime is a failure. It failed in the wake of 2020. Gene Peters Baker was at the top of the list for failures on this issue, not just regionally, but around the entire country. And unfortunately, it's had really negative impacts on the entire Kansas City region. Number two, when I look at this story and what matters and how we define it, is the fact that we continue to have these problems in more suburban areas, driven in large part by the obsession with apartment complexes in these municipalities. I work with somebody here who owns a condo across the street from this apartment complex. And what did she tell me yesterday? She said, when I bought the condo, that apartment complex was not there. They build the apartment complex, and it has been nothing but trouble. And this is happening in municipalities in Johnson County, in Jackson County, and in Clay County. These cities and these counties bend over backwards for these developers. They let them put these complexes up wherever they want. They rezone them for whatever they want to put up, and they say this is going to be state-of-the-art apartment complex. And it is until they build the next one. And then what happens?
Carlton Greens in Grandview, where they kicked everybody out with no place to go in the last few months, is what happens.
Yes, that's how it ends. You do not end up with the people that you had when the place opened up. We'll put it that way, okay? It's a story that we see every single day. And all these municipalities are lining up saying, developer, what do you want? Well, you just tell us whatever you need. And you screw over the homeowners, you screw over the longtime residents. KMBC chose to take with this package.
KMBC 9's Jackson Kurtz is live tonight from the Lee Summit Police Department after speaking with a domestic violence shelter who says domestic violence can happen in many different ways. Jackson?
That's right, and they say that domestic violence situations are on the rise in Kansas City. We spoke with Newhouse, Kansas City, that told us just last year there were 12 homicides related to domestic violence. This year, that number is at 14.
When we see these stories, it's heartbreaking, and we just think it's one more story.
Newhouse KC, a domestic violence shelter, calls domestic violence in the metro a community health crisis.
We are seeing the number of crisis calls increase significantly. The number of people we're helping has risen by 40%. People are needing more help this year.
Domestic violence showing up in Lee Summit, where an officer was shot by Thomas Tolbert, who beforehand allegedly choked a woman, grabbed her by the neck, and threw her to the ground.
Maybe I'm nitpicking here. I don't know. Maybe it's the rain. But I also don't think we can say domestic violence showing up. Domestic violence doesn't show up. Okay? You have low lives who end up, of course, beating the women in their lives. It doesn't show up. It's like when they talk about gun violence. Guns don't just go off. Somebody pulls a trigger. Somebody uses that tool and uses that weapon for bad things. That's what it is. Domestic violence didn't show up in a parking lot in Lee Summit on Sunday night. You had somebody who went out of his way, who consciously made a decision to allegedly be involved with domestic violence with some woman in his life. Didn't show up anywhere. I just think that stuff matters when you're telling the story here. And it gets glossed over. And now we're sitting here saying, okay, why is domestic violence up? I mean, I would be curious to know that, but here's part of the problem. When you don't treat low-level criminals the way you should treat them, when you slap them on the wrist, what ends up happening? These people oftentimes become more hardened criminals. I mean, that data has been backed up during the history of policing in this country. That's why when you go back to 2020 and you think about the insane conversations we were having about how, we shouldn't prosecute certain crimes, about how the real victims here are the criminals themselves because they might have, hey, yep, she'll take care of that. That 6'2", 240-pound male who's armed with a 10 millimeter, yep, she'll definitely be able to navigate that one. Said nobody ever with any common sense. But those were the insane conversations happening in Kansas City and across the country a few years ago. Now you know why. We need cops. And yes, cops have to be trained in this stuff, and they are trained in this stuff now, but it's dangerous work. It's not intended for little Sally the psychiatrist to show up and sing Kumbaya and talk everybody off the ledge. It's not the reality when you're dealing with people who are involved with oftentimes domestic violence, drugs, gangs, and other violent criminal acts. It doesn't work. And that's part of the takeaway from this story. Not like, oh my goodness, domestic violence is up. What do we do? Yes, that's a problem. The numbers are up. But I think a large part of why the numbers are up is because you've got people out there who frankly shouldn't be on the streets, who for too long, especially in this town, were not treated the way they should be treated by the justice system. And God willing, Melissa Johnson, our new Jackson County prosecutor, is starting to change that. And she has started to change that in this Tolbert case. She charged him yesterday before he was arrested with first-degree assault, second-degree domestic assault, armed criminal action, unlawful possession of a firearm, and resisting arrest. On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, let's cut Thomas Tolbert some slack. After all, the Days Inn at Ellis does have an outstanding continental breakfast. Jeez.
Yeah, maybe that lured him in.
Maybe.
Well, to the
I'm
other
not
side,
worth your Red Lobster money.
why wouldn't he be charged with a hate crime since he's done it before? We've got that discussion going on.
Well, that's true.
Right? Might as well throw that one there.
I hope that Melissa Johnson gets him for absolutely everything
Yeah.
she can get him on. He's only 27. I can't sit here and say that he's, never going to be on the streets again. He probably will be at some point in time. But, man, I hope it's a long time before this guy is a free
parked
man.
on the line there, buddy, so there's a parking ticket, too.
Yeah, whatever. Line it all up.
Get them all.
Every single thing. Every single thing. You can get him on. Hit him on. We'll get to our caller of the day coming up at the bottom of the hour. As always, on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We've got our buddy Kevin Keatsman with Uncanceled at 10 o'clock. Coming up next, there is a big picture conversation on local government spending. We got some numbers here from one side of our state line. Overland Park put out its proposed budget for 2026. It just can't keep up at this pace. It is insane how much money Overland Park is wanting to spend. Absolutely insane and unsustainable. And this all could come crashing down to a halt. We'll tell you what's going on next on KCMO.
Benson Show from Minnesota will be in the homeland of jazz hands. Tim Walz will talk about him. Tommy Lahren joins the program coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
The land of jazz hands. There you go. Nice job, Guy Benson. Still like 10 tickets left if you want to join us next Thursday out at Boulevard, as Guy Benson will be in town for a meet and greet, show, dinner, and drinks. KCMOTalkRadio.com is where you can buy those tickets. So I get these things in my social media feed. It's based on what the algorithm thinks you would like. And I've been seeing a lot of this over the last couple of days about how there are nearly 500,000 more sellers than buyers right now in the housing market. Now, some people are going to look at this and say, it's a buying opportunity. There are more sellers than buyers. And these are the highest numbers we've seen since these started to get tracked over a decade ago. The other way to look at this is buyers are basically just sitting on the sidelines because it's too expensive to own a home right now. Interest rates are high. Now, they're not historically high, but they're still pretty high. And the prices on the homes have not reflected the higher rates. They just really haven't come down. Obviously, we know that home ownership and demand for homes skyrocketed after COVID. There was a lot of things happening after COVID. After COVID, you had not only people realizing, hey, I don't have to live in a shoebox in an urban setting. I can work from home. I want some more space. You also had millennials coming of age, having families, looking for that suburban lifestyle. All these things came to a head at once after COVID. And that's what drove a lot of the craziness in the housing market. Well, now it's starting to slow down. Now, do I think there's going to be some massive real estate crash, i.e. 2008? I don't, because I still think that when prices come down, demand on the buyer side is going to spike once again, where people are going to say, I can afford to own a home. Right now, I mean, you got to be making into the six figures to afford an average home in this country all in. When you talk about how the price of home ownership has gone up, not just in terms of, getting the down payment, but the insurance rates have gone up tremendously. The property taxes continue to go up. All these things are happening and people are feeling like they're priced out. So what's the potential fear here? The fear here is that the frothy nature in which our local governments have been living with over the last half decade is going to have to end. The question is, how does it end? Does it come to a crashing halt? Is it ugly? Or do they kind of wake up, realize they've been greedy and they've been reckless for the last few years and they've got to slow down? Or do they just say full steam ahead and we're going to crash this thing right into the wall? I don't know what they end up doing, but I do know that when you look at, like last night, Overland Park proposed its 2026 budget, and you see that property tax revenues are now $93.5 million for 2026, when for 2025 they were $88 million. As recently as 2018, they were $52 million. Do the math. That's an 80% increase in property tax revenues from Overland Park residents over the last 8 years. That's unsustainable. And what does Overland Park say? Our mill rate's lower than others. People don't pay their taxes in mill rates. They pay them in real dollars. And what Overland Park is doing here is fleecing, I believe, the taxpayer while trying to sell you this idea that, well, at least we're not as bad on our rates as Lenexa. So I asked Dave Traubert about this morning. He was on Kansas Policy Institute, and he reacted to this news out of Overland Park that also showed their revenues, total revenues for Overland Park, Kansas, that were $292 million back in 2018, increasing to $498 million in 2026. Do the math. That is a 40% increase in their total revenues over the last 8 years. And I'll get to the population numbers or lack thereof coming up as well.
and they're sitting on tens of millions of dollars in cash reserves, which is money they've taken in but not spent. And that just goes to underscore my point about Prairie Village. Government will continue to spend, and without regard to what the public wants or without regard to what is necessary to efficiently provide services.
Dave Traubert knocked it out of the park with that last comment there. They don't care about what is necessary to provide just the services for the residents. That made a place like Overland Park so great. That saw Overland Park grow tremendously. In 2020, they were at 197,238. The 2023 estimate that I'm looking at here is 197,089. They lost 200 people. What does that tell you? But despite the fact that over the last few years, they've really been stable when it comes to population growth, their spending's not slowing down. So you do the math. What then has to happen? They have to take more from the people that they have if they're not growing the population at the pace they're growing government spending. Or they have to figure out how to attract someone like the Royals that will draw people to spend in their municipality to continue to grow government at the pace in which they're growing government. It's an unsustainable model. And all the people in charge seem to be whistling right past the graveyard on this whole thing. News coming up in a minute, and we will get to our caller of the day who gave us a real good laugh. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
As some of you are noting on the text line, too, 913-408-7957, Overland Park City Council also moving forward last night with a plan to give Black and Veatch $270 million in subsidies to a company that already has its HQ right here down the road. You're Overland Park, right? Act like it. Act like you're worth being a place where Black and Veatch should want to do business. Act like it. I mean, Overland Park brags about being a top 10 place to live in America. And then the second Black and Veatch says, hey, can we get $300 million in subsidies? They're like, sure. What do you need? Like, act like it. If you're a top 10 place to live in the country, people want to be there. No one wants to leave. Man, it doesn't make any sense, some of these decisions that are getting made. But hate to say, in too many cases, it is par for the course, John.
This is how Taco works.
Yeah.
Tell Black and Veatch, I don't think we have the money, so when are you leaving?
Yeah. Call them out.
Because we could use the space.
Call their bluff. Trust me, we'll have someone right behind you, right? If you're Overland Park and you believe you're a top 10 place to live in America, then you will have no problem filling the space that Black and Veatch is going to leave if they don't get their $300 million in subsidies. Oh, man. We are glad you're here at KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. You can always stream us by downloading the KCMO Talk Radio app. It is that time of the morning. Our Tirade Tuesday, or our caller of the day, was tied to Tirade Tuesday. And it was not about necessarily anything topical in the news cycle, but it was the kind of call.
What great calls. I don't know if I'll be able to match up to that. Hey, 10, 15 years ago, everything was about the Amazon rainforest. And, we got to go paperless, man, and email me, man. We're trying to get our paper down. Now we got a corporation called Amazon, and I get a box about the size of a refrigerator for a toothbrush and toothpaste, deodorant every month, and plastic packages. I guess we don't care about the Amazon rainforest anymore.
Hey,
man. I guess that just went.
Take it easy on them. Jeff, take it easy on them, buddy. At least they're driving electric cars.
Yeah, but the crazy thing, it's called Amazon. Man, we just tore down Amazon for him to build boxes. I mean, when I come home from the lake, I come home from the lake yesterday. I thought I worked as a UPS warehouse, man.
Yeah.
I had boxes out here like it's Christmas. Nobody cares about that anymore. It just cracks me up.
Oh, Jeff, that is an outstanding tirade, buddy. That is so good. You are
I appreciate
spot
it.
on.
Those are good ones today.
There you go, Jeff and Shawnee. I like it, John. He knocked it out of the park.
Yep. I was echoing his sentiment, of course.
Oh, yeah.
My Chewy order is a box in a box. So.
Well, did you see this? This news just breaking here. Within the last hour, McDonald's bringing back snack wraps permanently on July 10th. I'm not a fast food guy, but if I got to go to McDonald's, those snack wraps are pretty darn good. Now, I always thought they were good because they were also a good deal. I don't know what they're going to hit you for on these snack wraps, but McDonald's announcing this morning they are bringing back the snack wrap coming up on July 10th.
Never had one.
No? All right.
Is that the tortilla chicken?
Yes,
type?
exactly.
Is there lettuce on it?
Yes, there is lettuce on there.
Remember them? Okay.
Yep.
That scared me, the green stuff.
Available in spicy or ranch coming up on July 10th. So I know Mark's going to be on his McDonald's app trying to figure out how he can get himself some free ones because that's what Mark does when it comes to fast food. He's going to be all over it.
Oh, yeah. I'll at least look to see if I can try it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Trust me.
They'll give me a free one or something.
They'll give you a free one, Mark. They'll take care of you. Okay. But when you hit that big Jack Caglione parlay tonight, you can go save up a few bucks and buy one for yourself on July 10th. You know what they got to do? They got to get Trump out at one of these McDonald's and have him serve them.
Some snack wraps.
Trump's got to be out. If they want to knock it out of the park with the snack wrap return, Trump has got to be out at a prominent McDonald's location passing out snack wraps.
Bring his portable McDonald's from Saudi Arabia or whoever brought.
Yes, we eat your fries. And that's not all that happens behind the scenes. If you thought that when you ordered Uber Eats, the guy or gal who showed up was not sneaking a fry or two, you're very naive. Very naive. I've never done Grubhub. The app is not on my phone. It is one thing to be lazy. I will order on Amazon. I will go get my own food. I don't need it to show up later than it has to show up, and it's soggy and it's cold and it's disgusting. I don't do that. I've never understood paying a Grubhub fee and a delivery fee to have food show up your house in worse condition than had you have just gone to get it yourself, John.
You could drive to the place, come back, drive to the place, and come back by the time you get it delivered.
We are so freaking lazy, and I don't understand the appeal of Grubhub. And now you've got Grubhub employees telling the New York Post that, of course we eat your fries, Mark.
One of Heidi's friends was staying with us a couple weekends ago, and she wanted to do Grubhub. I'm like, I'll just go down there and get it for you. It's like 2 blocks away.
I know. That's what I mean. Like I've understood delivery. Like if I've got the girls at home and Kate's out, and for whatever reason I didn't want to cook anything. I mean, I get it. You don't want to maybe get 3 kids out to go pick up a pizza or something. But Grubhub, I mean, you're delivering all different kinds of food. You really don't have any reason to believe the driver cares about the quality of your food when it shows up. It's not like they work for the restaurant itself. And now, according to an alarming U.S. food study, more than 1 in 4 drivers were guilty of munching on food they were supposed to be dropping off. And you know the number's even higher because that's only 1 in 4 who are admitting they're doing it, which means I guarantee you it's pushing 50%. If I were just spitballing that number, I would guarantee it's pushing 50%. You're telling me there's no cameras on you, you're in your own car, you're driving all this food around, it smells like fast food, French fries, pizza. You can't grab a slice of pizza. That would be a little too obvious. But you can grab a French fry right out of the bag. And you wrap it right back up. There's one thing I'd like to see us end in a world that started post-COVID, where we just got lazier than all get out. It would be the end of operations like Grubhub. I don't understand the appeal. They'll take care of you.
Yeah. Some neighborhoods have ruined it for the rest of us, though, and they won't deliver from the company. Sometimes you got to go third party, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Potentially.
I didn't realize that could be a problem.
Yeah. Yep.
Either way, I'm going to get my own food. I'm not letting some
Touche.
schlub take my fries.
I want that filet of fish fresh. My God, you know?
Hate to break it to you, John, it's gross when it's fresh too, buddy.
All right.
Oh, man. Coming up, we'll wrap up the show with a new ranking that came out for Major League Baseball stadiums. And despite the fact that we're told the K is crumbling and has concrete cancer, it does pretty well in these rankings, go figure. We'll get you that next before Keatsman Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio.
Musto on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
New rankings here. Best baseball stadiums in the country. Men'sHealth.com. Now, I get it. It's just the opinion of one organization. And you could find opinions on Major League Baseball stadiums that might be the complete opposite of this. That's fine. I'll throw that caveat out there. But nothing else. It's new. It's topical. And it relates to, obviously, the top story of the week in this town. And that is whether or not the Missouri legislature will pass a bill that will help the Royals and Chiefs with potential stadium funding on the Missouri side of the state line. So this Men's Health article ranks the top Major League Baseball stadiums.
Simple criteria.
And coming in at number 6, Kauffman Stadium. Look at that. Whoa.
Woo! Yep, they rank the stadiums based simply on the building.
Yeah.
No factor of this study and that study and ratio. Nope, they just said, let's rate the buildings.
Now, are the Royals calling up Men's Health and telling them about the concrete cancer this morning?
I don't know.
Or is that not happening? Whoa, hey, we don't want to be number 6 on this list. Whoa, guys, come on. We don't want to crack the top 20 here. We have not been selling our fans on a new stadium to now be number 6 on a Men's Health ranking list. We can't have this.
That concrete cancer is not good for your men's health.
Yeah.
Touche.
So here are the top 5, just to give them to you here. Number 1 was PNC Park. That's home of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Never been there, but it does look like a gorgeous setting right on the river overlooking downtown. Number 2, Dodger Stadium. Of course, iconic stadium out there in L.A. Number 3, Oracle Park, home of the San Francisco Giants, right on the bay. Also looks like a gorgeous setting. I've not been there for a game, but you know, Barry Bonds dunking it into that bay all those years. A lot of memories with that.
A lot of 2014 World Series memories for Royals fans looking at that park.
That's right. Number 4, Fenway Park. Was there just last month. Obviously, that's worthy of a top 5 spot based on the history and just the uniqueness of that park as well.
Absolutely.
Number 5, Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Really the first of the move to a downtown setting, have the old look of a ballpark.
Rehab an area.
Yes.
Bring it back to life.
That was the first one of that kind back in 92.
And then actually utilize a structure.
1973. Perfect for tailgate-happy Kansas City. The concrete structure lies hidden beneath seats. The upper deck strikes the proper steepness balance, and the outfield is marked by plaza seating and gorgeous cascading fountains. But we got to blow it up.
Keep your hands in the boat, kids.
Yeah, that's right. To our buddy yesterday, Michael Liberty. You're right about that. So, listen, is this like the reason you say, that's why they shouldn't leave? They're leaving. Let's be very clear. I know there's a very popular Facebook group that picks up a lot of our stuff called Save Kauffman Stadium. There is no saving Kauffman Stadium. It is not going to happen. Maybe Patrick Tuohy has floated out the theory of a lease potential. But even I don't agree on that. I mean, John Sherman is not getting younger. He's in his 70s. He's going to find himself a new ballpark somewhere around Kansas City. Time's not on his side. I'm not saying he's going anywhere, but, you get to a certain age, you're not like, I'll buy myself another couple of years. Not really thinking like that. So I disagree with Patrick on that. There is no saving Kauffman Stadium. So I'm not throwing this out there as a way to say, see, we got to save the K. They've made it clear they're not staying. The question is, where do they end up going? What ends up making the most sense? And I'll leave you with this quote here, speaking of the stadiums, from Clark Hunt in a piece that was in the New York Times on Friday that we didn't talk really at all about yesterday. I touched on a little bit earlier this morning. But Clark Hunt said about renovating Arrowhead or building a dome in Kansas, quote, both options are very much in play. Really, our timeline is driven more by having enough time to do the renovation work or the construction so that we can be in the new or renovated building in the summer of 2031. To really comfortably stay on schedule, it would be best to have some direction by summer. Now we have to have the direction by summer, but it would be best to have the direction by summer. To me, this feels like a squeeze play. This whole article that was written by The Athletic, to me, was designed to pressure Missouri. The piece was headlined here by Nate Taylor. Quote, a renovated Arrowhead or a dome in Kansas, inside the Chiefs' looming stadium decision. And if you didn't know anything about what was going on and you weren't paying any attention, you would think the fours and Super Bowls and more concerts and the whole thing. Then why haven't they gone? This felt like a conveniently timed pressure piece for the state of Missouri. When I read this article, that was my takeaway. And they've got every right to use the media for whatever they see fit, right? They can do whatever they want when it comes to using writers or radio shows or TV or social media to try to pressure the right parties to get what they want. But let's be very clear. I mean, the timeline here for Clark Hunt could be tomorrow. He could make a decision tomorrow. But they're waiting to see what the offers are. They're waiting to see what the deals are from the state legislatures. And as a result, indirectly or directly, depending on which side of the state line you're talking about here, the taxpayer to some degree. That's what they're waiting on. And we just got to at least present it that way if we're being intellectually honest here about what's at stake. And I'll tell you what, too, Guy Benson, he keeps texting. We're going to a game next week, Royals-Yankees on Wednesday night. He's like, he can't wait to see the K, man. He is so, now maybe he'll be disappointed, but he keeps texting, oh, man, I can't wait to see the K. I've been wanting to get out there. I haven't been to a game yet, so we'll see what he thinks. And hopefully he doesn't get hit in the head with concrete cancer while he's at it.
Well, there is a certain nostalgia to the 70s look of the stadium. We were just talking about here that most of them got torn down because they were multi-use. You tried to cram the football stadium and the baseball stadium together. It didn't work in Cincinnati that well or Pittsburgh and different places. But here, since they were separate parks, I think it has a unique look, obviously, now where everything old is new again.
Yeah. I mean, here's what's going to happen. The Chiefs and the Royals are going to do new stadiums, and then come the 2040s, the 70s look is going to come back.
Yep.
That's what's going to happen because what's old is new again.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. We're done. We're actually overdone. I went too long. Sorry, guys. Keatsman Uncanceled is next. Have a great day.